Woo indeed. Hello, hello. Hello Twitch and welcome. Welcome to MikePls, a new stream for Dungeon Masters, D&D players. Yeah, welcome indeed. Today we're going to be doing session 0, some introductions to the stream. Let's get rid of that. Welcome to MikePls. There we go. Right. You're a little bit behind as well. What an intro. So what is this stream? It's a stream for D&D players, DMs. The intention of the stream is for us to grow as Dungeon Masters and D&D players. Personally, I'm going to use it as a vehicle to encourage myself to play more D&D and to hopefully, with your help, build a little bit of a community where we can all get better together. So my primary content that I think will help with this is that I'm going to start a world building stream once weekly where we're going to go not just world building, but we're going to build our own campaign together from scratch. So I've already got a map because I do a bit of map drawing in my spare time. The world did have a name and the cities and towns on the map do have names, but we can change those to meet our purposes. So the whole plan starting next Sunday is for us to get together to look at this map and to start creating a world around the map. But from there we're gonna build out. We're gonna plan our session 0 for hosting our own D&D game and how to handle a session 0. So the idea is this will be ideal not just for established DMs, but if this is your first time DMing, we're going to build a template that you can use to host your own game, and you can chop and change it, take bits that exist, like replace anything you want, or just use what we've talked about as a benchmark, as like a stepping stone for creating your own campaign. But the process itself will be quite fun. We'll start with world building and then start working into individual sessions, and we'll go down even as far as planning encounters. And I'd like to, when we've got a bit more going on in the chat. Hello, those of you that are talking. Welcome. It would be nice to devote some time every week to discussing topics that people want to go over. Yeah, if you want some feedback for your own games, if there's anything you could do with a party consensus on, right? You know, if you want to put it to the public and get other people's opinions. This is all supposed to be like a collaborative effort. So we're going to start that next Sunday with World Building 101. But this week I thought what would be nice, because nobody really knows who I am, right? So what I've done is I've organised an interview with myself. Anna, centre of attention. It is my stream though, so that kind of makes sense. I've organised a friend to come in and interview me on your behalf, so that you can get an idea of where I am as a DM and who I am and what I'm about. Because I am far from an expert, right? Which is something that there's like we have a thing these days where we look to people who are like content creators, people, streamers and people on YouTube and what have you for expert advice. But the reality is that the people who are doing that aren't necessarily the experts, right? So I want to be nice and open about where I am. I love DMing and I want to get better at it. I want to become an expert, and I think this is a good way to start. So, without further ado, I'm gonna bring on our guest interviewer for today. That is Mr. MikePls. Say hello. Say hello, Mike, please. I didn't catch that because I was putting headphone in. But how are you? Yeah, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to pretend that I haven't been speaking to you for the past half an hour, and that you've just arrived. Yeah, because that's the magic of TV. Yeah. Love it. Yeah, same. Oh, hang on. Got a bit of a... Rupert can't hear you. That's not, obviously, it's not Robbie B. That is... Oh, is it because of the headset? Go again. Yeah, talk again. You, Mike. Mike, hello.
Can you?
Oh dear, please. Try just. Yeah, I think that should work.
Look in the chat when you start hearing my voice.
Hang on. Obviously, day one, session 0 hitches wouldn't be a stream without them. Let's have a.
It's quiet with the sound.
Keep going. Keep talking. Yeah, I can't have the headset.
Give some love in the chat if the audio level's good enough. Can you hear me? Hi, Robbie B. Given the audio
report.
reports.
About 15 seconds behind, which is making this quite difficult to.
Yeah, for sure, man. We'll get it sorted.
What I can do is. I'm slightly worried that you're going to be. I'm slightly worried you're going to be echoing because fine. He says fine because I think that my mic will pick you up as well, which obviously we don't. It's not ideal. But if he says it's fine, Ali's saying lovely stuff. Sounds celestial even. Fantastic. Yeah, so we're gonna have to go back to.
Yeah, man. So if I'll just start from scratch. Yeah, how's that sound?
You were doing so well as well. I was feeling what you were putting down.
I've spent all day like knowing I was going to do this, just being like, oh, what are you going to say when that camera comes on? And I've been, running it in my head, make sure I'm rehearsing, making sure I'm going to get it right, and then obviously something was always going to come in.
I think you came flying in a lot better than I came in as well at the start. So maybe it was intentional. Maybe I've thrown it intentionally just to make myself seem better.
Oh, you done me dirty, man. You done me dirty.
Well, it's my stream. I can't have you being the star, can I?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'll start again anyway. Obviously, as Ross says, my name's Mike. I've only ever played D&D from the other side of the table as a player. So it's actually really exciting to get to sort of sit down and talk specifically about DMing with Ross. And just sort of ask you a couple of questions and kind of learn about that process myself, because I always have sort of these questions in my mind of like, how difficult is it? How much time do you waste? Is it I've got a bunch of questions.
How much I waste is a very good question.
We'll get to that in a little while, but I can imagine that you set up a lot of stuff that doesn't ever get executed because you never really know what anyone's going to do. You can see the light sort of dying in your eyes when you ask us a question and we're trying to make a decision. So I'm really excited to kind of get your perspective on it all and sort of just find out where you're at with it. So if you if you're happy, I'll start shooting with a couple of questions.
Yeah, go right ahead this way. Well, I want to say before you start as well, this is a perfect opportunity. If anyone's in the chat and wants to ask a question, post it in there and let Mike Brown. He's our interviewer, so let him put those questions to me if you like them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He's well within his right to ignore nonsense, so.
Yeah. Me ignore nonsense. I create the nonsense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I think the first question, and I think one that especially a lot of newcomers will be asking, a lot of people who want to learn, is straight up: is DMing difficult? Because I know, obviously, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons before, even from a player's perspective, sometimes it gets quite complicated. So is it a lot more difficult being a DM than it is from playing the game, or is it just completely different?
I think you'd be lying if you said it wasn't more difficult at all. There's an onus on you to have a better grasp of, well, not better, but at least as much of a grasp of the rules as the players do. But that's not the beauty of D&D in and of itself is that you don't need rules in theory, as long as you've got an answer for every question. But that in and of itself can be difficult. Is always having an answer. Like, you have to be on the whole time. I think it's more. I think it takes more energy. I wouldn't say there's anything difficult about it. You can offset any struggles you're going to have by being better prepared, and that's kind of what this whole stream's about, right?
Sure.
I think anyone who has a proclivity to DM has the ability to DM, and you shouldn't let being worried about it being difficult or anything hold you back, because it's the game becomes based around what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So if you do it, you can't do anything wrong as a DM because you're God, right? In a sense, it's your game, so everything you do is as it should be. And especially if you're in a scenario where you've got people to play with who have played before, they should, if they know you're new to it, they should make things easier for you. But well, on the other side of that coin is new players expect less as well. So I haven't answered your question, but that is the politician's answer to is DMing more difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and obviously with it being difficult, I assume that will always come down to the individual too, because obviously I don't know, when we play, for example, I always feel like you always have a better grasp on everything that's going on than everybody else does, which I guess essentially is the way it's supposed to be, because you're creating the scenario, so you have the answers to the questions. So if somebody feels comfortable or excited about being the person in that scenario, then they'll find it probably a lot easier than somebody who might be a little bit more introverted and
for sure, not
as keen to answer questions and stuff from people.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of self-reflection. I think that the way I DM, I tend to make things a lot more difficult for myself than I should do, and that's and I know what. The more I think about it, the more I'm aware of things that I should be doing to make it easier for myself. But
for sure. But then, like on the flip point, we have no idea, like what you're going through in your head. Like, we're just like, he's doing a great job. Like, you might just be having like a meltdown inside.
Oh yeah, that's happened. I can tell you for definite that's happened like more times than I can count.
Yeah. And like, it's funny, like always at the end of a session, we'll reflect on like, we always sit there eating snacks, clearing up and whatnot. I'm always reflecting on like the funniest bits, and I know like sometimes you've been like, like you really enjoyed that bit, and you're like, it seemed like in your head you thought that everything was going wrong when we were just like having a great time.
Yeah. The setting helps, and context is like it's very unlikely that your players are gonna have a bad time. If you sat with friends playing D&D, they're gonna have a good time no matter what. And yeah, I can definitely put a lot of pressure on myself to create something that's not necessarily might be a bit over and above what is required for everyone to have fun.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, don't worry about it. I think the best thing someone could do who wanted to DM for the first time is just to do it and to not prepare even, and to just get a pre-generated game online, or like if you own any D&D books, you've probably got like a pre-structured campaign lying around somewhere, but you can get them online easily enough for free, and just run people through it, and it'll all go wrong, and it won't stay on the rails that you thought it was going to stay on. But like your players will come out of what you thought was a disaster having had a great time. You'll realise next time that it doesn't matter that they break through all the walls and destroy everything you'd planned for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like as a good segue into I guess the next question. let me read how I've written this down. So do you struggle sometimes when it comes to, obviously, there's a lot of, how do I explain? There's a lot of sort of impasses in the game where you come to a certain scenario and the players will have sort of, for example, 2 choices. And then they'll be like discussing the choices. And I know from experience with you, sometimes I'll look up and we'll be talking about sort of one of the choices. And then I'll look up at you and you're like smirking. And then we'll start discussing the other one. And you're still smirking. And I'm like, what's this guy thinking? Do you ever tend to find yourself struggle not giving away where the campaign's going to go through your expression? Or is that like you're pretty good at it? How's your poker face is essentially the question, I guess.
I think in that specific example, I think it sounds like my poker face is good, but generally, like the most rewarding part of DMing is when you get the opportunity to sit back and like just really full on, like, because you're constantly being asked questions and what have you, and like you'll find different members of the party want to do different things at different times, and they start like queuing up to get like your attention for a few seconds to ask you like, can I search through this drawer, or like, can I ask this person this question? And you're sort of sat there like, and especially when we've been playing, we're playing a campaign with like 7 or 8 players, and they're all wanting to do a different thing at a different time, and you can see them all looking at you, and yeah, it's full on. But the most rewarding moments are those moments where the players just talk to themselves in character.
Yeah.
Or like not even necessarily in character, but in character is always great, and they're just discussing you'll sit there smirking no matter what they're choosing to do, because like it's just great to watch, because a lot of the time they're choosing to do something that like you hadn't planned for anyway. Like this is a good example of like, you say I'm smirking, you're choosing between 2. Probably neither of those things were options that I was intending to give you. And like the fires, the world's on fire inside my head, and I'm thinking like, what do I do? If they choose path A, what am I going to do? If I choose path B, what am I going to do? Like, and you're just smiling like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Like I think I'd be lying if I said I'm perfect, and I definitely there have been moments where I've hoped to God that you choose path A because path A is one I planned for and path B is not. And but I think in my opinion, right, I think a sign of someone who's a good DM is someone who can create a situation or create an in-game reason why, like, to nudge them to path A without making it too obvious.
Sure.
Like you, at any moment, for any reason, an NPC can walk into a room and go like, "Yeah, you should go down there."
Yeah,
for
sure.
But if they're more subtle about it, then right.
Yeah, it's definitely like a bit more hand of God, I guess, from your perspective than it is from ours.
Yeah, and when you first start, you definitely you just want to say like, just do this, because like on a level with friends, can you please go down there because I've planned for that, and the other one but like you don't want to do that because that's the game rule. But then like I said, for people who are new, that just do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So something I want to talk about, something I probably want to devote like an entire stream session to is the idea of setting expectations for a game. The idea that like, you should, before you start a campaign, you should talk to all the people who are going to be player characters, and you should have an open discussion about this is the campaign that I want to run as a DM, and this is the kind of things that I'm expecting to happen, and like it sounds really like overly serious, but like what you expect from your players in terms of like the little things, just like, even if you're saying we're going to play every week and this is the day we're going to play, and like being like, please don't cancel last minute, and
sure.
the little things. But that goes both ways, and that if you've got a group of people who just want to sort of monster of the week, like they just want to do a battle every week, and they don't care about talking to NPCs and stuff, like have that conversation beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, so there's we've actually got a couple of questions in the chat, which is cool. I know Ali asked this question first, but I'm gonna go for Rob's question just because it's more relevant to the topic with Rob now. But Rob says, how often has there been the unprepared path chosen in your experience? Does that happen a lot?
In my experience, I want to give the funny answer and say that like everything you do, everything you're in the game that Rob plays in, like every decision you make is one that I'm not expecting. But that wouldn't be true.
Yeah.
I'd say probably like close to 30% of the time, which
30%.
is like, you know, it's good odds, but it's so depending on the scale of the decision that's made, like that can be like catastrophic for what you've planned.
Yeah.
But
so there's a 1 in 3 that you're gonna have to sort of wing it. Is
probably, yeah, but that's from like 1 in 3 is probably like 1 in 3 includes like minor deviations.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Like, they're not always like catastrophic. Like
like one of your players wants to do something dumb and you're like, great.
Yeah, like there's always going to be like some things that you think are dumb, but that's if people are enjoying themselves, that's the point, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's kind of part of the fun, isn't it? It's just kind of doing your own thing and letting your imagination run wild. So the other question that we've got in the chat's from Ali. He says, do you, Roost players, prefer writing characters for campaigns or letting the players do it?
The player characters. So that's a real interesting question, actually, because so for the campaign that you played in, originally when we first started, I wrote the characters for all the players.
Sure.
And that was a huge mistake. It's kind of it's one of those weird, like it was a huge mistake, but I stand by it because the group of players we had, especially like you go back, like I don't know when we started playing, like 6 years ago. The group of people we had who were interested in playing, I don't think would have sat down and got the most out of creating our own characters. Right. There's a couple of players in particular I think like just wouldn't have really got into the like nitty gritty of creating a character early on. They just wanted to try D&D and like see what it was all about. Which for some people, like creating your character is like the best bit, and for some people it's just like paperwork, right? And I tried really hard to make sure everyone had a character that they'd enjoy playing. But yeah, I would always let the players do it. I don't think I would ever do that again. Even saying that I stand by that choice. Then like it's difficult. I think we'd have less players if we made our own characters in that campaign.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
We would have introduced some people to D&D who now enjoy it, but it's like one of the most important parts of like playing, right? It's creating a character.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess like for a bit of perspective, I guess if you have people come to your party who are brand new, they know nothing about D&D, and you think they'd enjoy the game more by just having an easy ride in the beginning, giving them a character is probably a good idea because they can just jump into the fun stuff, right? And if they're not going to enjoy that there's a lot of maths involved in.
Like it's a weird one because even the Dungeons and Dragons start set has pre-generated characters in it.
Yeah.
The one you can get now, and I know when I played that through the first time, not the red box, like I can't remember what it's called now. I think it's called the Essentials kit. The first time I played that through, I remember feeling like a bit bad about being railroaded into a character, and like they're pretty classic. Like you've got a halfling rogue and an elven sorcerer and a dwarven cleric, right? But I felt bad being railroaded because I'm definitely the kind of player who would want to build their own character. But they've made that. I guess they've made that decision in a start set for a reason because it's just decision paralysis, right? If you looked at like, especially with all the extra content now, just looking at 5th edition for D&D specifically,
Mm-hmm.
like how many races and classes and what have you, like, and then you get to level 3 and then you've got to choose like an aspect for your class. Like most of them get a choice to make, and like which path you want to go down. It's like you just want to play, roll some dice and see what's going on. Then maybe that's not the most helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I would always rather the players make their own.
Yeah.
But I would be willing to, if I was asked to, I would be willing to do it again.
Yeah, sure. Right, man. Obviously, from my perspective, it seems like you do a lot to prepare for these sessions. How much free time would you say that takes? Like, do you spend does it take like weeks to organize a session, or can you smash it out in an hour, or does that kind of, I guess, depend on the stuff that you have planned as well during this session?
A personal question, Mike. I over prepare for sure. So I spend a lot of time planning for sessions, and I spend a lot of time that I think I shouldn't spend planning for sessions.
Classic.
One of the contributing factors to that is that we historically have played so infrequently.
Mm-hmm.
The more time that if we've got 6 months between playing games, like I've had when we get to a point where we set a day and we're going to play in a week's time on Friday, I've been thinking about it for 6 months. More than that, because I already had a plan for what was going to happen before then. But now I've spent 6 months going like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, what about if this happens? And then I have a tendency to just over prepare because I've got all these ideas and I want them to happen. And that is not a good thing. I definitely need to chill out as a DM. Let the good times roll a bit more.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So on to my next question. Obviously I know you really personally. We've known each other for a really long time. I know you're a really creative dude, and you like to get your teeth stuck into stuff. Are you? Obviously, I really enjoy the more creative campaigns that you come up with yourself, that like your brainchilds, not just like the ones out of the book. I really enjoy just sort of taking any weird whack direction and knowing that this is all sort of a little fragment of everyone's imagination, just having like a real good time.
Cooperative.
Yeah, sure. And are your campaigns inspired by anything in particular, like real life stuff, or is it all just like complete fantasy, I guess?
In terms of like setting and story and stuff, I'm a fantasy kid, right? Like I grew up on Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Fate, and Wheel of Time. Sorry, I couldn't say that anything I've thought of is original. But I think it's just an amalgamation. I try to have unique ideas, and I guess that they're just inspired. It's just an amalgamation of everything. I write real low fantasy, right? I prefer worlds where magic's rare. Right? It exists, but it's not commonplace. I like society to be kind of medieval, right? Where there's aspects of magic that exist, but barely anyone has access to it. So that it's more wonderful and magical when it's encountered. So I always tend to stick to that. But in terms of story, I've been inspired by things that wouldn't be found in that setting, and just try to adapt it to be like TV shows and things. Just try to adapt it to a fantasy setting.
Yeah, sure.
I pull from everything. I'm a great thief. Just bit of everything and mix it all together until it's not recognizable as any of those things anymore.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that'd probably be really great advice for someone starting out as well. Is you don't have to be some sort of best-selling storyteller or anything like that. You can draw little bits of inspiration from other places and just kind of adapt those ideas.
Choose an episode of it, TV show or a film or whatever, and just change the characters a little bit. And, there's no The wheel's already been invented, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use it.
Yeah. Yeah, simple as that, man. Yeah. So like how many so now obviously you don't have ultimate control over the players and everything that we decide or the other guys decide as well when we're playing. But how often do you find that we've kind of gone so far off the beaten track that something you've put some time into planning just gets completely wasted because it's like there's really no going back and going along that path anymore? We've sort of just gone so far afield. You're like, oh, well, I spent however long, 20 minutes coming up with this, and that's just we can't do that
now. All the time. So
that makes me feel bad.
No. It's so you know the windmill, right?
Yeah.
There was like a story, like this first story arc of this campaign. The players ended up in a windmill of corpses, and they were trying to get to the top to find your classic like necromancer type dude and find out what he's doing, because he's been coming and buying dead people from a local town, and the floors of this windmill don't sync up. Like all the rooms connect to each other via portals, and like there's not a clear path through it. And there were 27 floors to the windmill, and I had an idea for all 27, and I had a map drawn out for how all the rooms connected.
Yeah.
But I didn't plan 27 rooms. I just had something written down, like a sentence, like this is the library of Persians, right?
Yeah.
And I knew in my head that I had an idea that it's going to be like a huge library of Persians that like you're going to be able to throw, and they're all going to have like random.
Yeah.
And like that's one of the rooms you went to, and I think you went through like 12 rooms in it.
Yeah.
But all of those ideas are still written down somewhere, and there's no reason why they're wasted. And that's like something something you have to learn early. Like when you've planned, like in a more like specific scenario where your players were supposed to go and fight some bandits in the tavern, and they just walked past and didn't go in the door. You've still got a encounter with all your bandits that exists in a tavern, and there's no reason you can't use that later. And like the more you've DM'd, the more you've got this catalogue of like ideas. And the next time your players are in a town and they've annoyed you, and they're not going the right way, and they're going to a pub instead of going where they're supposed to, you can just throw a tavern full of bandits at them.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So I guess like obviously you probably spend a lot of time trying to come up with ideas in the beginning, but I guess those ideas will compound as they don't get spent. And like it'll get to the point where you're like a few sessions in, and then it's like, oh, this is way easier because I just got this laying around. I'm just going to chuck that in the game. Bang, save myself 10 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, like it's like you're not going to use them in places where it doesn't make sense, and it feels bad. Like this is kind of like behind the curtain stuff that like not everything's necessarily been specifically created for this. Just take an old thing, put a new lick of paint on it, and use it again.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm not sure if I ever sent you the video actually, but speaking of the windmill, there's actually like a wind farm, like maybe like half a mile from a house, and I've never really noticed it before until like one really foggy day, and I looked out the window and noticed this wind farm. There was like a foggy like turbine in the distance, and I was like, "Oh, it's giving me flashbacks, man." R.I.P. Cadola. Oh.
It's the most sexiest man.
Yeah, it will freak me out.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
I missed that. It was fun.
Oh, here we go. Someone in the chat's calling me the world's sexiest man. God, you guys.
I agree, you know.
Oh, look. My head is big enough.
Do you remember so I'm going to go off on a tangent. Do you remember the river?
I remember, yeah. Actually, I want to talk about the little map thing you made us as well. That was out.
Speaking of like going off the, so the entrance to this windmill, it was like the second room, right? You found your way out of the foyer. Like there was like a study when you came in the front door, right? And you kept coming in and looping through the same room over and over again. And when you eventually found your way out of that, they ended up in like on a river rapids.
Yeah.
And I'd got like a glass pane and laid this glass pane out, like with dice under the corners, so that it was like there was clearance from the table. And I've got like a really long, like 3-meter piece of white paper, and I've drawn like a grid on it with a river on it. And the idea was they could sit, like I'd made little paper boats and barrels and stuff that they could use as transportation, and they'd sit on top of this glass, and I could pull the river through the glass as they travelled down it, and they'd be able to move like left and right to try and avoid the obstacles in the river. And it literally took one turn for something I hadn't thought of at all. I've got this bit of glass. You can see the grid through the glass. Everyone will stay, like they'll move left and right, back and forwards a bit to try and avoid the obstacles, and the paper will get fed through. It literally took 2 seconds for people to start moving off the glass and go, I want to go down the river. So now you've got people on the paper, and every time you move the paper, you've got to lift it up and pull it. That was a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. And like I feel like I learned a lesson that day as well, because I think up until that point, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd kind of been real conservative with letting people's characters die, because you knew at this point we were like emotionally attached to our own characters, and I really loved my character Fedora. It was class. Like, I loved playing that. And then like me and we got Rob in the chat here saying, can we not talk about the river?
Yeah, it's a sad day.
But like me and Rob's character were like in a barrel together, and we had like an emotional connection in the game and stuff. It was really funny. But we got real reckless, which was probably half me, half my character, and sort of did something real dumb, and you were just like, yeah, your character's dead, and I was like, oh man, like Ross has changed his mind. He's killing us off now. Like I was definitely under the impression that you were like still taking it easy on us, because you didn't.
Yeah, so like I definitely, to speak on that, like I definitely, you have always been able to die. Like you have always been able to, but certainly like in those early days, the encounters you faced will have been a lot easier. Like even relative to your level, because nobody wants their character to die, but also it's like a tough balance as a DM, because death has to be an option.
Yeah.
Because if your character can't die, what's the point in playing?
Sure.
Like, obviously we're playing for reasons other than like to get to the end game and stuff. But like, if you run into an encounter and you know there's no way you can actually die, like what's the challenge? Like you've got to know that your character can die. But yeah, so up until that point, it definitely been easier. And there was that moment I decided in my head that in that windmill was like a dangerous place to be.
For sure.
Like the stakes were going to get higher, and all the encounters became more difficult. And I believe what actually happened was that because you were going travelling, you were leaving us for some time.
Yeah.
So that your character was actually not going to be around anyway.
Yeah.
And you went off the edge, and I was just gonna, because I had already had an idea in my head that if you went missing, then that'd be perfect for story writing.
Sure.
Right? That you wouldn't be there anymore, and that explains why. Because you went over the waterfall and you disappeared. But you insisted after dying on rolling a death saving throw. Even though I said you didn't have to, and rolled a 1. And that is why Cadola Timbers is dead.
Yeah, man.
But I've yet to kill another player in that campaign. Do you know the story of Justicar Tren?
I don't think so, no.
So we had a situation where I'd already planned for 2 assassins were going to try and kill some of the party members on a specific night, and on that day, Tren decided he was going to sleep in the church on his own.
Nice.
While the rest of the party, you know how they say don't split the party.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he decided he was going to do it anyway, and he's going to go sleep in a church on his own.
It's honouring his character. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Bonus points for RP for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of them went to the church and one of them went to the inn, and Rob died, and so did Tren. Thok died and Tren died, right? And Thok was with most of the party, and they were able to save him. Tren died, and there was an old character who's like an important NPC as well. This is the other part of it. There's an old NPC who's like the priest in the temple.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
And he also I'm rolling for all this. Like he overheard it. I'm like, well, he's gonna go try and help out because he's a man of the cloth, right? Yeah. And he's gonna stand absolutely no chance. So he got killed as well, right? Yeah. And then the assassin leaves, and there's two dead people just bleeding out, right? A really old man of faith and Tren, just laying there bleeding out. And on his like second death saving throw, he rolled a 20. He's a paladin as well, so the paladin rolls a natural 20, gets up with 1 hit point, puts like 5 hit points of juice back into the important NPC that was also supposed to be dead. Yeah. I was I'm supposed to be impartial, but I was absolutely fuming.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's hard to sort of keep that to yourself. You're like rolling them dice behind the board, like boiling. Yeah. So we have another question as well from Ali Scarlett saying, do you ever keep a rough tally of stupid decisions made by the party? And if so, do you have any kill switch type scenarios designed to just punish everyone for idiocy?
I'd love to have punishments, right? But you can't do that. As tempting as it is, right? This is something I have to work on, right? If the players are having fun, fine.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about we're getting real personal now because this is something I really need to work on. But it's not about you. Mm-hmm. If the players are making stupid decisions and they're having fun, then that's fine. That's why you're playing D&D. And this kind of feeds into what I was saying earlier about talking about expectations before you start a campaign. Because
for sure.
If your players want to play that kind of stupid campaign, then you should be making a campaign like that. And if you take yourself too seriously to let that happen, then you should have let them know that before they started playing. Because it's not. Yeah. It's more of a time investment on your part, but it's their time as well. And everyone should be getting what they want.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Fair enough.
But I mean, for that campaign, if I had a tally of stupid decisions made, it would be monumental. It'd be like 6 digits. I love it. Honestly, I think there's a propensity to look at the time that a DM's putting into stuff, and I know because you've hinted at it. Players in that campaign can see that I've put a lot of time into some of the things that happen, and I tend to take myself quite seriously, and I've written a really involved story and stuff. So then people think that when they're messing around, are they wasting my time? And it's on it. I honestly I live for it. My favorite character Munger, my favorite player NPC Munger got almost entirely wasted, and it was but it was just the most ridiculous scenario you could ever conceive. So
for sure, man. And I guess to touch on that as well, obviously we play as a really close group of friends, and we all sort of know each other's sense of humour really well. And I think the reason we all get along is because our sense of humour is just stupid. We laugh at real stupid, nonsensical stuff. So yes, a lot of the time when we're playing, it completely railroads. There's people taking drugs. There's people, doing obscene things in one corner. We're in it to have fun. We don't try and take it too seriously. So I think to sort of start punishing people for that, especially in our scenario, would just completely kill the vibe. But on the other,
I'm planning to go back to see Mungo at some point.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
wish you would just be polite about it. That's there's like, it feels kind of punishy when you're like insisting on like NPCs being uncooperative when the players are being asinine, and I like, I definitely have concerns at sometimes that people think that that's what's happening. Like, if I'm being uncooperative because they've been asinine, I don't want the players to think that Ross is doing that because like he's annoyed at us. It's like I have a task as the DM to try and make this to make the campaign believable and stuff. And like, I'm fine with you being asinine to everyone. It's real funny. But like, if the players are fine with being treated like they're asinine by everyone, then that's like fine.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love Mungo to come back, but it's like there's a lot of that party. There's a lot of personal growth that they have to go through with like being cooperative with people. And they're like, half of them are in the chat and stuff, so it's weird. But
yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah,
say hello to someone the first time you meet them instead of stealing from them. Or like...
Yeah, like just stop trying to fight everything. Like, let's just have a conversation for a little while. Ali even says in the chat, Ali obviously plays with us as well. He says, I've been planning to go back to see Mungo at some point, don't worry. So maybe that is on the cards in the future.
Well, we can keep the stream updated on. When Mungo like makes another appearance, because we can maybe
keep a scale of how close we are back towards Mungo. But and like on the flip coin of that as well, I remember a lot of times when we've been playing as well, it's real funny, but you bought like a little multi-pack of small sweets with you, and like every time you did something, every time one of the characters or players did something that you thought was I guess creative, remarkable, funny, or like really added to the story, you just chuck them a bag of sweets. And it's like, it's real funny because I remember one time like you give me a bag of sweets and I was just like, man, next time we play, I'm definitely getting myself another bag of them sweets. And then I wrote the song, because obviously my character
that was so good.
I recorded like a song on my computer. I hope it never ever gets out to the internet. But like a little bard tune. Well, I think it ended up being a rap actually to sing to everyone.
Yeah, it was
and then you didn't chuck me the bag of sweets, and I was like, man, like what are you gonna do to get this? But I think you just straight forgot.
Yeah, because things like that, you sort of go like, you're always experimenting as a DM with things like I want to reward players for RPing, and like my most recent iteration is to like give out bonus XP. Like, I've had like a mug on the table and like I put a post-it note with bonus experience in for people. It's just like 5 or 10, like 15 when people are role playing well or whatever, or have done something funny or whatever. But there's like, it's really, you're already doing so much. There's a lot of things like that just like, you've got to remember to also put the post-it notes in the thing, and it's like you're already remembering so much. Like I've not like, that's not to say it's not a good idea. I've just not found something that works for me. Chucking out sweets was definitely, I think I should go back to that. Yeah. That was it. Yeah, that was real easy to do. Snacking anyway, and it was just like, got to whiz a bag of sweets at everyone. Good.
Yeah, man. It's nice to like try and ping one real quick and it's one in the face. It's always creates a bit of bad
when you like not going the right way and stuff, you get to put a bit of fizz on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Let's go with these questions. So,
burning down someone else's farm is rude. Political correctness is going too far. There you go. Can't argue with that.
Yeah,
He set the orc on him first, and then tried to burn his. Set the orc on him, and then tried to burn his farm down because he wasn't being cooperative after being choked.
Yeah, that's definitely a massive point of perspective, isn't it? I'm the kind of player who really, really likes to just try and talk a situation through. So when I feel like Ali's the complete opposite side of the coin. He's like, I'm just going to set this dude on fire. Like, let's choke him out, set his farm on fire.
That little ditty was Pontus.
Right, Pontus.
Man of faith, yeah. Just
Yeah.
like, I don't know, they'd all had enough, I think, and like he just started stacking twigs against the side of the building. Yeah, Ali's a different man. Erdra Alberts has got a pair of boots now.
What?
Yeah, he's
come back to us. I missed
a
second
second boot.
Yeah. This guy's got boots.
Yeah. Plural.
Oh, something
one left, one right. Wears them at the same time.
Yeah. Nice, man.
Monthly showers. Yeah.
Monthly showers. Overseen by the more hygienic Erafina of the group, probably making sure he's getting another pits and that, you know.
I think that party does miss Cadola a bit.
Yeah, maybe, man. Yeah, I really like
the characters they've got that are more sensible. Are too quiet.
Yeah,
like Washans and Nalara are definitely like they're like the moral compass of the group, but they're also like two of the quietest members.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like they're missing their front man, you know.
Yeah. yeah, the rock star. All right, man. Obviously, we've already touched on sort of the creative aspect of DMing, and obviously, like I say yourself, it's something you enjoy anyway. But do you think creativity is really important towards being DM, or do you think even for the people who don't practice or enjoy creativity, depending on whether you think that you can practice it or you just have it, sort of thing? Do you think it's still easy for people to DM if they're not necessarily creative through using like sort of set stories, or do you think it really does have to be sort of a creative process?
I would disagree that you have to be creative. Sure. There's so many tools and resources out there that you're not required to be creative. I think being creative is a good signpost that you will enjoy DMing, because it's a good place where you get to flex that muscle and like you're in charge. You can do anything you want, right? Anything you can think, anything you can possibly conceive of can become a part of your campaign. Sure. I think there's a trend line where like there's correlation between the two things, but I wouldn't stress that it's required at all. I think you can learn how to think on the fly. That's the hardest part of DMing.
Yeah, and a massive part of that as well is like if you've not DM'd before, just trying it is the easiest way where you're going to improve.
Yeah, like you can't. How do you know how you're going to respond to a situation where you're reading out of a book and the players want to go in a different direction? How do you know how you're going to respond to that until it's happened?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're going to have to sort of figure it out on the fly. And
I think that's why I've always like gravitated towards just writing it myself anyway, because it's easier to know what. Like I feel like, and this is just me. Like there are people who like exclusively run pre-made adventures, and that works for them because that's the type of DM. But I always worry that if you're reading out of a book, it's like it's all there, but it's like you can only see the front facing of it. It's like it's all, when you turn it sideways, it's all like 2D paper, right?
Yeah.
Like if I built the world myself, then I know what happens if you go outside of a room, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you've kind of got your own mental script, as it were. Whereas the book, if you stray away from the book, it's a bit like you've gone away from.
Yeah, it's like it was all here and now we're not in here anymore. Like the book's now not relevant. Like,
yeah, for sure.
So that idea terrifies me, and that's why I don't really do like fish stuff. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. Right, man. I mean, another question I've got written down, which seems pretty obvious to me at this point. Do you prefer DMing to actually playing the game, or is it like maybe even to reflect on that? It seems obvious that you do enjoy DMing more, but is it nice to just step back and be on the other side of the table from time to time, and just be able to kind of relax and kind of mess around with the world you've been given?
I think they're two. I think they're so different, and that's another really interesting thing about playing D&D. Or obviously, this is all relevant to other role-playing games, but talk about D&D because that's what we generally play. I think that's one of the really interesting things about it is that it creates this weird scenario where you've got a room full of people who are all engaging in the same activity except for one, and like it's the activities are so different for me that I couldn't even really tell you which one I prefer, because there's certain moods I'd much rather play in certain scenarios if I'm just wanting to relax and hang out with friends and stuff. And if I'm willing to, if I'm willing to be the center of attention for an evening, and and do stupid voices and like read you a story that I've written and stuff like it, then maybe if I'm feeling that way, feeling kind of fruity, I much prefer DMing. But yeah, it's quite an interesting like scenario, because like, how many other group activities do you have where like it's just maybe like it's kind of similar to like entertaining dinner guests, I guess. Like like everyone there's just sat around drinking wine, eating dinner and stuff, but one person's like had to create it for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you find it like quite a solitary? Because obviously, when you're around the table with everyone else, from a player's perspective, you're like having fun with everyone. Like all your chums are there having a wild time. But then, do you find it like quite a solitary experience being sat behind the DM board? Like you feel like you're enjoying the game in a completely different way, and like, do you feel like there's a divide, or are you still like you're enjoying it as a group as well as just having like a little extra zing from your perspective as well?
Personally, I think I have to remember that we're all enjoying it together.
Yeah.
There's definitely a divide between what we're doing, and because there's even the little things like when we were saying earlier, like you sat there with a grin on your face because they're choosing between two, and what's behind both of the doors and stuff, and like it's like you have your own little in-jokes that you can't share with everyone because like,
probably kills you. I know you love a zinger. Love a one.
Yeah, like it is. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's a little column A, little column B. You definitely have to be able to entertain yourself behind the screen in those scenarios. But like you're also when you have the time to be a part of what's going on. Like the players are sharing the in-jokes that are happening between the players are there for you to enjoy as well, because both sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like when we're playing and stuff like that, is there any sort of certain aspects of DMing that you feel like you really need to improve on, and that you feel like sort of takes away from the campaign, or do you feel like you have a pretty well-rounded grasp on things now? I know you've been doing it for like quite a long time.
You're gonna have to repeat that question, because I was just reading that again.
Oh yeah, no problem.
I was moaning about being big. I was a giant.
Yes.
Being massive.
Oh fuck, man. Yeah, so like when you've been DMing and stuff like that, is there anything that you particularly feel like you need to improve on as a DM? Because I know you've been doing it for quite a long time now. Do you feel like you've got a pretty well-rounded grasp on all of the aspects, or is there like certain areas of what you need to do that you really need to?
God, no. I think it's one of those things where like if you, and this kind of plays into like what I said at the start of the stream about how like it's a societal thing where like what people consider to be experts on things. People on like someone who's got a YouTube channel about doing something is an expert. And it's like that's someone who cares enough to have made a YouTube channel, but they're not actually like that doesn't qualify them to be an expert. Not that there's anything wrong with like taking their advice on things, but it's just an interesting way. Like when we all play D&D, I've got the most experience, and that puts me in the seat of like the expert, and I know nothing. Like, I'm like in the grand scheme of things, I'm 5% less clueless than everyone else, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like, but like I don't think there's any part of my game that couldn't be improved, and I know the specific areas that like I really want to work on.
Yeah,
and like I've said them already. Like they're mostly just sort of taking a step back, and because of how much preparation and stuff I'm doing, like how creative I can be with the world. Like you've got to be able to let go of. You've got to be able to let go of the story that you've written and let someone become a giant and like block a doorway and try to set a farm on fire and all that kind of stuff. Like because if that's what people are enjoying, then like just react.
Yeah.
I think being reactionary is like the key, right? Because you spend ages building like a story, and you plan like this is what's going to happen next, and they're going to talk to this person, they're going to find this clue, and they're going to do this and that, and then the players start wanting to fight things instead of talk to things or what have you. Like your players are telling you what they want to do.
Yeah.
And being able to react to that and say, "Oh, you want to fight everything? Like, here's a big monster to fight."
Yeah.
And then they'll, when they're tired of fighting the big monster and they start trying to talk to it, you go like, "Well, this is weird," but like the players are telling me that they want to talk to someone, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, getting that's something that I particularly want to work on.
Yeah, man. And like going back to your point there as well on just like people's perception of other people who are giving advice, especially on the internet these days. I think it's like a really important point you bring up there. And I think it's great that you kind of wear your heart on your sleeve, especially going forward with this stream. That you're not perfect. You don't necessarily know everything about DMing, but it's fun that people can just come into the stream, kind of learn from your mistakes before they make the mistakes, and hopefully that community will
I don't make mistakes. I didn't say I made mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Perfect, Ross. Yeah. But yeah, for sure. And it's nice as well that hopefully that that community can kind of give a little bit back to you as well, and you can improve our sessions, and then over time we can come back on and obviously you can come back on, and like sort of speak about your experiences and see.
Yeah, I tried this. It was awful.
Yeah, exactly.
I tried this and it worked. Sure. Like, that's what being able to take a step back from self and say like, this is where I am. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to achieve out of this stream, is to create a community of people who are willing to learn from each other and say like, none of us are perfect. There's a big like in Dungeons and Dragons, for people who do DM. There's like a big like there's a big like Matthew Mercer, shaped hole that everyone thinks they've got to fit into, and like that man's a genius and has been playing D&D for like decades. And you don't have to, and he's a voice actor as a trade, and he's got so many things that you don't have that are going to make him instantly be better at D&D than you are, and for people to like expect themselves to like become like that. Like, people have their own styles. Like I say, like there's people who read published adventures, and there are people who build their own worlds, and there are people who don't do voices, and there are people who do voices and stuff. And none of those are right or wrong. So being able to talk to people on a level and say like, this is what I think I'm good at, and this is what I think I'm bad at. I'm willing to listen to you tell me how to get better is important.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so a lot of the times when we're playing through sort of storylines and stuff, especially ones that you've obviously pre-planned, especially, sometimes we'll make a decision, and then like, these are always my favorite bits of the sessions as well, by the way, is like when we make like a certain decision, like, oh, we're going to go in that room, and like see a little smile on your face, and you're like, oh yeah, and then you like reach down into a bag and you just like pull out like a grid or something and just put it on the table and like start putting up like little columns and chests and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, boy. And like that always that always really excites me, and I'm always really excited, like, oh, like obviously plan this out, there's something like good going on in this room where we are. We've obviously sort of hit the nail on the head. Obviously those physical props for me really help me enjoy the game. Do you think the game would be missing a lot without those physical props? Or would you sort of recommend them for everyone, or is it a bit like obviously they work really well for your style?
That's definitely like a stylistic choice. I enjoy making things, and my favourite way to play D&D as a player is like minis and grids and stuff.
Yeah.
Like the theatre of the mind is how D&D was like how D&D found its origins and stuff. Like there's nothing wrong with that kind of game. And I try and I always try and include some percentage of like combat off of a grid because it's a part of the game, and like that encourages your players to use their imagination and stuff. When everything requires you to use your imagination, then you don't have a choice, right? And the minis and grids and scenery and props and stuff are like really fun, and it's like a great aesthetic for everyone. But it does take something away from, I think, the experience. Like it adds, but it also takes away. So I would definitely always, if there were 6 of me sat around the table and I was DMing for them, everything would just be minis and stuff, because I know that's what I like. But I think it's important to have both, and it's a stylistic thing. I think you could play games that are only theatre of the mind.
Yeah.
Because it's a way to play.
Yeah, for sure. Ali says in the chat as well, like a degree of theatrics definitely improves the game. The shit's going down signal is always about them. Which again, it's like it basically goes back to what I'm saying. It's like you pull something out of a bag and you put a couple of pieces down. Everyone's looking at each other like, oh, here we go.
Oh man, yeah. Like you know, you've gone into a room that I planned on you going in when I've spent ages building something to put in it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's
I love that. And the look on people's faces when you like put something down and stuff. It's like, I live for that.
Yeah, for sure. That's not everybody knows there's something. Like when you're watching a film and it just goes dead quiet, and the character puts the hand on the door, and they press the door handle down. The silence, and you just go. You're like, oh, something's coming. That's the best bit of the film, at least for me. Just like such a small detail.
All the suspense.
Like like there is something. Like what is it?
The top of the. I'm not going to go get it now because we have cats who have made away with most of the pillars. I'll get. For next week. I'll get the. Oh, you weren't there for it either, were you? But like the final battle on the top of the windmill.
Yeah, no, I was
like I built like a. It was kind of similar to Weathertop, talking about stealing. But there was like a big stone. It was the top of the windmill, and there were pillars all around it in like 2 circles, and there was like a big rock at the top that it was all like magnetic as well. There was like a big rock at the top for like the big bad to stand on, and all the pillars came off and were magnetic because they were part of the battle. Like the big bad could like knock the pillars over. Sure. If you were like close enough, you hit damage and stuff. Yeah, like I really enjoyed making that. But it's so weird to spend like. I probably spent like 15 hours making that thing, and we were playing with it for like 2.
Yeah, for sure.
And now it's like it's got a pride of place. Like it's something that like when I look at, I'm like, yeah, that looks, because I'm real pleased with the result I got. But it just sits there, and you think like,
you spent like a full day basically making that to enjoy 2 hours of your life, and now that thing is just sat on a shelf going. Oh, you remember that time?
Remember that time.
So like I guess it comes back to like, does DMing take up a lot of free time? It's more just like how much time do you want to spend?
Yeah, how much time? Do you want to just read a published adventure and?
Exactly. Like, do you want if you want to spend 15 hours making a set for everyone to play so that they'll enjoy themselves for 2 hours?
Knock yourself out.
Go and get it done. But if you don't want it, you can still enjoy the game without spending that much time. Like you can plan things out, just write, draw a map on a piece of paper. You don't have to, and obviously I don't really know how you make all these things, but you cast things and there's all sorts of materials going around. You do a really good job, but for someone else, like don't be afraid to just pick up these old chaps. Just draw yourself a grid.
Or just make them imagine it. That's the like.
Yeah, exactly like that. That's the idea of the games. Like use your brain, use your imagination. Like you don't have to. Physically make everything physical for everyone. You can just describe it, and they can sort of take it for what they want it to be.
Sure, I remember. So this is like a big throwback, but we played. I'm sure Robbie B played with me. Played like it wasn't D&D. We played like an RPG thing, like way back when. One of our friends just like. Ran like an RPG that he'd thought of. There was no rules for it. We didn't use a system. There were no dice. Maybe we might have dice. We might have rolled dice, but it was literally just whenever you roll. I think we did roll dice, but whenever you rolled the dice, he was just deciding in his head based off like how likely it was going to happen and what you rolled, whether it happened or not. And it was just like there was no rule book or anything, and like we had great fun.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
It's like that was like my first experience playing a role-playing game.
Yeah, for sure. And Robbie B says in the chat the quick fire rolls escaping the mill was a real memorable part of that battle as well. And talking about the battle on the hilltop with the pillars.
Oh my god! You can't believe you missed all of this.
Yeah, like I was not there. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Like you told me my character's dead body came back to fight the party.
Yeah, that was. Doc did not like that.
No, he didn't. No, for reference, any strangers watching, Thok is another character in the game who was really closely.
You were boys.
We had a really close relationship. We had a good bond, and like when my character died, that character was heartbroken. So for him to have to fight that character's corpse, essentially,
because I'm
probably a little morbid thinking about it, but
because I'm a bastard, you had his. Because you went off the waterfall together, and that's when you died. And he never found his great axe.
Right.
And you arrived with the great axe and fought him with it.
With his own axe as well.
Yeah.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, it was real cinematic. And then the escape thing that he's talking about was like the most stressful thing I've ever done. Like I had a sound timer, had an hourglass. Obviously not an hour, but and I'd written all these cue cards and it was just like speed reading, like you're running down the tunnel and you see like the roof starts to split and like a rock falls down and then immediately throwing them like what do you do? And like the whole time the time's running, so they've got to tell me what they want to do and then roll high enough to achieve it, quick enough to like get out. But like I had no idea, so I'd written it all, and I read through it like a load of times with the sand timer, and I was like, this is going to be close, I think, but I don't know how long it's going to take them to. So I was like reading the card to myself with the timer going, and then thinking of a response, thinking how long is it going to take him to say it, rolling dice, like how long is it going to take him to achieve it, and like they could have run out of time like halfway through. Or they could have finished it with like half the time to go. I had no idea. Like I was just going off. This is like my best guess that this is going to be close enough, and it was pretty close. Yeah, it could have been closer, but it was pretty close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I genuinely just ran out of questions, but in absolute immaculate time, and Alex Gallus just posted a question in the chat, so we can keep going for a little while longer. At least on my part. Ali says, as a DM, how restricted are you by the core rules of the game, or are they fairly flexible?
They are. Wow. All right.
Delay, so I have no idea what's just happened.
The first rule, I think the first rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide, somewhere in like it's real cheesy and horrible. But somewhere in the rules for 5th edition D&D, it says at the start like the number one rule of D&D is that the DM has final say kind of thing, and like and that isn't for tyrannical reasons. Like the whole point of that is that if you ever have a situation where you don't know the answer, the DM just makes it up. And that's like the whole premise of the game is founded on the idea that like what the DM says goes. So it's flexible. You don't need to know the rules. You just need to like. It's a good example, like what I was saying earlier. Mine and Rob's first encounter with like an RPG, like D&D, was someone just sat there going, "What do you want to do?" He'd drawn like a map on an A5 piece of paper of a town, and we could go around and do stuff. And you roll the dice, and we didn't have a character sheet with our own stats on, but he knew that one of us was sort of a rogue, and like another one of us was like a dwarf, and the rogue would be better at dex-based abilities, and the dwarf was stronger and stuff, and he would just decide when you rolled your dice if it worked, and he did a good job. And like, there's no reason that anything should be constrained by the rules ever.
Yeah. Sweet, man. Yeah, like I guess the game's set up intentionally so that you kind of decide if it's over and when it's over. Like there's never going to be a dead end because the DM always has ultimate power to be like, nah, like this is what we're doing. Next step, let's go.
Yeah, and you're all there supposed to be cooperatively playing a game, right? And like that's something that players can be aware of. That when the DM's making the decision and that people don't know the rules, like they're not doing it maliciously, or at least I hope not. You know, in any normal scenario, the DM is cooperatively trying to play a game with you, and everyone's supposed to be having fun. And when they make a decision, it's because they think that's what's correct.
Yeah,
so
of course.
The last thing people want to be doing when they're playing D&D. And I say that's not necessarily true because there are people who enjoy like rules lawyering. But the last thing most people want to be doing when you've come to play D&D is sit and flick through the rulebook to find the exact page that, like, if the DM can make a decision there and then by rolling a dice and going like heads or tails or whatever.
Yeah. Sure, it just keeps it a bit more. It keeps a bit more momentum rather than having to stop every couple of minutes and flick through a book, right?
The dice aren't a part of the role play, right? So I'm going to talk myself into a knot here as I try and explain this. But like the game of Dungeons and Dragons is played in the bit where you role play, right? It's in what happens in the game as you play, and we outside of that we roll dice to determine if things are successful and what have you. But that only informs what happens next inside the game. So they don't even have to like marry each other necessarily, right? We're taking prompts from rolling dice to tell us what should happen next in the story. But the dice can be ignored completely, right?
Yeah. Ultimately,
I think that sort of makes sense. But like one of the things that you see a lot is people saying like that there's like an argument online. It's not one I've ever like engaged in, but the premise that 20 is always a success.
Right.
And like that's not true because, in my opinion, it's not true because the dice are there to inform us, like to help us think for ourselves what happens next in the story. Like if a character wants to jump to the moon and they roll a 20, would they get there? And any reasonable person would say no. That'd be like their best. They'd give it their best attempt at jumping onto the moon, which should be as high as they can jump, but they probably won't be able to get there. So the DM should always be able to tell you what happens next, I guess.
So like human discretion definitely outweighs the decision of the dice, but the dice are kind of there to lend to the decision.
The dice in that instance are like just a representation of the rules. Like the rules are there for us to like. We know that a certain dice roll hits because that's what the rules say. But if the DM can give you a reason why it doesn't today, then you should, as a player, be like, okay.
Yeah, man. So we have another question in the chat here from Erofina's the Fire. Do you think player characters can be OP? And if they were OP, how would you handle that? Or would you even handle it? Would you just let them kind of run away with
it? Player characters can be overpowered in the sense that you're relatively speaking to other players, right? So if you were playing a campaign that had one character in it, it wouldn't matter how strong they were, because there's no one to compare them to. And yes, a player character can be overpowered compared to their peers. And would I address that, or how would I address that, is a different question. So I think that only ever needs addressing when you think that it's having a negative effect on other players' experience.
Sure. Yeah.
Follow? Because some people like min-maxing, right? And I do this sometimes. Like I don't think it's something I do in D&D, but like it's something I definitely do in other games. Like some people enjoy making their character as powerful as possible. And that's how they enjoy playing the game. So if you can let them do that, you should.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that becomes an issue is when there's other players at the table if there are other players at the table who are having less fun because they feel like their character isn't as useful.
Mm-hmm.
So I would address, if that became the case, if I could see that someone was not enjoying the game as much because they felt like their character wasn't as useful as one that was OP, I think it's your job as a DM to manufacture situations where the other person's character would be useful.
Sure. Yeah.
So because inherently, it's you can't make a character in D&D that's amazing at everything, right? And rogues get very close to that at high levels, where they get to a point where they get reliable talent and they just basically can't fail stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there will be something that your other players are better at, and you need to create a situation where, this is what I would do anyway, create more situations where the person who feels like they're not as useful is the most useful member of the party.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, yeah.
You should be able to do that in game, hopefully. But it's all about like, this isn't something you want to do when you're playing D&D, but like, communication is important. And if you tried that and it wasn't working, then I would want to talk to the players.
Yeah.
I would speak to the person. I would speak to the player that I perceived to have an OP character, and I would explain to them that while like there's nothing wrong with their character being OP, that like I think this other player would benefit from being given a bit of the limelight. Like it's a story, right? And all the characters are supposed to get their share of the limelight.
Right.
And I would just try and have an adult conversation about it. Like,
yeah. And
the next time I give this person like a dex-based thing to do because that's what their character does. Can you not like jump in and ruin it for them?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I guess that what you need to remember all the time as well, even as a player, not just as a DM, but everyone sits down at that table because they're there to have a good time. Like they want to have fun. So don't you can't just let one person have all the fun by being OP and just let everybody else, like sit there and be like, oh, one person's just like playing the entire campaign. And I guess that's where the DM becomes really useful in that scenario because you can play the middleman and be like, all right, let's try and like give these other players something to mess around with and have them play their own game and enjoy themselves. Because there needs to be some sort of balance there instead of one person just having loads of fun and others kind of sitting around waiting to jump in.
Yeah, like this is like a nightmare situation for a DM, really. Like this, but that's not necessarily what. Like the question is just, can characters be OP? And on the face of it, characters can be OP, yes, and provided it's not negatively affecting anyone, I wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
If that player wants to be like the tank of the party, and they're doing that, and everyone else is fine with them being the tank of the party, like why?
Sure.
Like just back on.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Give them tips on how to become even tankier. If everyone's okay with it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think we strike a really good balance, at least in our group as well. Of like there are characters in there that really love the sort of combat side of things. There's the characters that just enjoy playing the fool and just making people laugh, and then there's characters who want to
who are those
charisma and people who want to explore taverns and not just focus on combat. We have like a really good spread of like personalities that'll all sort of balance out the game on their own.
Yeah, that's like a dream, if you have
you
have that one character that wants to do the talking when you're in town, and you have the one character who wants to be the first person to take a swing, and everyone can agree on when and where those things happen. That's great.
Yeah, sweet man, sweet. All right, well I'm flat out of questions. If you've got any questions in the chat, the next 30 seconds is key. If you've got any more,
46. That gives them their like 16-second delay. Right.
16 seconds, right? Yeah, man. But yeah, I'm like somebody said earlier in the chat as well. Like really looking forward to getting that first session in as well after lockdown, which stands true for me as well. I miss you guys bad. So it'll be fun to get around and roll some dice and just have a mess around, eat some snacks.
Yeah, I think it's a crime that we haven't like tried to play online during lockdown.
Yeah, we did one time. Do you remember? We played with Eddie, I think. We managed to play on the online D&D. And it went okay. It's not the same. I'm always going to prefer the tabletop, but at the minute we probably.
I really enjoyed that.
Especially with having such free
Eddie's a good DM. But that was so it's quite topical really. We played that campaign, or like played one session of it, and I'd made my character was a dwarf bard, and I had no combat magic at all, and I was running into I can't remember. I think it was like a pre-written campaign. I can't remember what it was, but like the premise was that we were trying to infiltrate like a tower, and I'd gone in on like the first session and had established a rapport with some of the like minions who worked there, and was trying to lobby for like safe working conditions and stuff.
Yeah.
For them. Like and was having a real good time like going, and like I think my interpretation of what was going on, like I think Eddie was really enjoying like the character as well, like because I wasn't fighting everything. I was like my idea was to try and like get all of the minions in the thing to revolt, and then we'd have like an army to like overthrow the top with.
Yeah, and like you went in with a party, like you were just gone.
Yeah, like the first full like because we played like an introduction thing with just him and his partner, and then like the first session I played with the other players, I didn't not really knowing any of the other players. You could tell. I felt as though I could tell they were not so happy with like the way my character was playing.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of situations where they were just like going into a room, like they were. I'm not saying they were murder hobos, but they were being very murder hobo-y and like going into a room and immediately fighting everything, like which in an evil tower isn't necessarily like the wrong thing to do. But like I felt like I wasn't clicking very well with the other players.
Yeah.
So I don't think the other players are enjoying my character being part of the party, so I just sort of stepped back a bit. But that's kind of what I'm getting at in general. Like D&D is like communication is important. Like if those guys, I was having a great time, but if those guys were thinking like, God, this guy's like just wanting to talk to everyone and like,
God, what an ass.
Yeah, like what? There's like a net negative of fun there. If 4 people aren't enjoying it and 1 person is, like, I'm going to remove myself from the situation for their benefit. So,
yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Got stuff in here now. What they say. But for a while at least. Did last April. Birthday one shot.
It looks like you did some good. The character's got jobs.
Jobs at AI. Oh, Acquisitions Incorporated. Oh yeah. We're talking about something completely different. But yeah, we've done like a couple of lockdown. Like Hannah's been doing one shots and stuff.
Right, yeah.
I'm selfishly talking about my campaign.
Yeah.
I haven't run a session of my campaign.
Yeah, and I only obviously talk about the one that I play in because that's my experience of Dungeons and Dragons completely. So, Ali Scarlett, I'm fresh out of D&D related questions, but what have you?
I'm all for like a quick fire round of not D&D related stuff at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't really have tea. I had a very late lunch that was cheese and ham toasted.
Yeah, I'm holding off on tea, just drinking beers, I guess.
Yeah. Fantastic.
That's my tea. Welcome to the life of being an adult. You can't just drink beers for tea. Is it healthy? No.
Are you doing it anyway? Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mikey, what's your favourite class in D&D?
I quite love like sort of the rogue kind of vibe. Just anything like I think I'm fairly similar to you in the sense that I'd rather sneak about and then just try and talk to people rather than just. And I'm not the guy who just takes out a sword and just like, right, let's just kill this like NPC. I'm more just like I either want to try and like sneak past the NPC, rob the NPC, or I want to try and have a conversation with them.
Yeah,
I
just
kind of,
like
I guess I'm like
outside.
a pretty like a bit of a pacifist when it comes to playing DD. I really like sort of the more the role playing sort of side of things. If I wanted to fight something, I'd just like go on my Xbox and play COD or something. I don't really play D&D to just fight stuff. I enjoy the combat and stuff, and I appreciate that it's a lot different from other the other formats. But I don't play D&D to fight stuff. I play it to try and flex my imagination and
Yeah,
sort
it's a
of
social thing. Yeah, it's a
exactly,
social
yeah.
thing for me, and like when I'm in that kind of social headspace, like I want to talk to NPCs and not. I don't know, like it's fun. Like combat's great, and especially when you've like leveled up and like you've got new abilities to test out and stuff, and like you've got your party like bouncing off each other and thinking of ideas and stuff. But like
Yeah.
I think when there's too much combat, you have the danger of running into that. Like go into a room, like kill all the stuff in here, pick up all the loot. Next room, kill everything, pick up all the loot. Like that.
Yeah.
Personally doesn't appeal to me as much. Like I much rather like explore the world and.
Yeah, I more enjoy like the time that we spend in towns and stuff, like talking to people and finding out bits of information. Rather
Robbie, Luke, please.
Especially like there's like 15 minutes where you've like had a big fight or a boss fight or something like that, and then you go, right, everyone's leveled up, here's your experience, like here's what you found, here's your loot. And then it's just like that 15 minutes of everyone's just like got a pen and a piece of paper in hand, and they're just like, oh, what's 10 plus 4? And you're like rolling a dice, like great, I gained a point. And like I'm not really like
try DMing, mate, because that's a 20-minute break. You all leveling up, and everyone you give the book out, and you can just sit there and be like,
yeah, yeah, it's imperative for your mental state. But yeah, as a character, I don't really enjoy that. Well, it's not I don't enjoy it. It's just that's not what I'm there for. I enjoy the. I quite like, in a weird way, I quite like testing you and testing the DM and being like, I'm going to interact with the character and say some weird stuff and see what I get back. Because I know a lot of the time you're just improvising. So I just want to see what you'll say. I like sort of pushing that boundary.
You get to a point DMing that you sort of like you learn you have to like because you can write reams of paper about all the characters and what they're going to say.
Yeah.
But the players won't ask the exact question you thought they were going to ask. So then, like, you start to, and I've been like up and down. Like, you start to find a sweet spot of how much to write. At the moment, so my current setup is I have Magic the Gathering cards of characters. Like, I've pulled out a load that that fit in my fantasy world, right? With like humans and elves and stuff that like look like they could be like NPCs in my world.
Yeah.
And I put like a comment card down the back of it, and on the comment card, all I put is like I put a name, an occupation, something they want, and then like any like other interesting information about them. And I put that down the back. And then I've got stacks of those that are people, and then I've got stacks of them. I've got like stacks of them that aren't, and like the ones that aren't won't have a job. If you ever come across a character, if someone wants to talk to someone that I wasn't expecting, I've got this little stash of, and like immediately I can pull one of them out. Like if you're in a town and like you're in a market and you should be talking to a human, just grab one that looks like a human, flip it over. I've got a name already, and then like I can fill in the job once you've spoken to them, and like immediately like I've got because I'm just describing what they look like on the card, not to ruin the magic of TV or anything, but like that's my current, and that works really well because I've been through phases of like writing like A4 sheets for every NPC, and like then you don't talk to them, and you're like, are they ever going to come back and speak to this person? I've written like I wrote like what their favourite food was when they were a bairn on it, and like it's just no use. And
just
this comment card thing just works really well because like there's just enough space to make notes as well, like because you'll just think of stuff off the top of your head just to make them interesting, and then go like, oh god, like I need to remember that this person to remember this person's got a dog next time we speak to them because I've decided they've got a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think little tips like that will be something really, really useful for the stream as well going forward. Because you save so much time doing stuff like that, like just having like little notes rather than like
it was the day that I started using magic cards for. You sit there, right, and you go like, "What's this person look like?" And I'd sit and I'd like, there's tables in the rule books and stuff that you can roll like an appearance on and stuff. And like you sit, and then like this bloke looks the same as this bloke because you've like just managed to roll the same, like they've got the same beard and stuff, and like it's just, like there's just so much you can think of that kind of stuff when you sit yourself down and force yourself to do it, and it's like it just becomes like repetitive. Like, hang on a minute, I've got a stack of like 100 cards here, and they all look like different people, and like anything you could find that you could use Guess Who. Just take all the cards out, I guess, and make all them NPCs. That's my hot tip for session 0. I'm going to do a campaign. This campaign, in fact, this one we're going to work on. We're going to use Guess Who characters for our NPCs. They've even got a first name. They're not very fantasy though, so you might have to.
Yeah, you can jazz them up. You know, give someone a battle axe and their fantasy. It's pretty much that simple, isn't it?
Jeff. Who's Jeffius?
Yeah, Jeffrey the Third.
Jeffrick of.
Nice.
Where that's where chat can guess who is such a good. Yeah, it's. I think that's.
Give Jeffrey a house name, please. Robbie B says loot, please, as well, and that's that's big on. Robbie B loves a bit of loot. Like you give him some.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey of Jeffreynia.
Lord Jeffrey of Jeffreynia. Third of his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got a mustache, a bald head, and little round glasses.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dean.
Jeffrey Bean. Bill from Guess Who is a monk if I've ever seen one.
Is he actually looking at Guess Who characters?
I'm gonna 1 minute. I'm going
to
Google to find out what Bill looks like. Bill from Guess Who.
Oh, Tom.
Oh my God, Bill looks like an egg. Oh, there's a lot of different Bills actually. Bill, man.
Bill, it's Dr. Eggman.
Yeah, like I don't want to be rude, Bill, but man.
Bill's house sigil would be a red lion.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Do you think Bill looks Welsh? Maybe.
I think we took a chat out. There were a lot of hot ideas and hot takes.
Yeah, man.
But 1 hour 43, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's a good first time. That's a good first time hit, man.
Let's get a favorite class and race from everyone in the chat before they go. Now I'm going to go with the classic. Surprising absolutely no one.
Oh, hot take.
I'm the worst. Serial soup. Shut it, Rob. I'm a half elf rogue. Every Skyrim playthrough ever. Just wood elf ranger.
Yeah. Bard rogue for me. Love singing a song. Love stealing some stuff.
Your favourite character class combination is just Cadolatin, isn't it?
Yeah, my favourite character is Dead. And I've got to live with that.
Orc Dwarf Barb. Nice.
Classic Robbie B. Big hitter.
Yeah, wasn't gonna. He's like dipped his toe into cleric, Yeah. He's been a dwarf fighter before.
Half Elf Ranger was always my pick for Baldur's Gate.
Cadolatin,
no! Inside joke.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
There's not really much of an inside joke to that, though, is there? It's just saying no.
Nah, yeah.
You done a dead and no one was happy about it.
Yeah, anybody can take that inside joke and make it their own inside joke.
You've got a new character, haven't you, for that campaign?
Yes.
I can't even remember what you like. This is terrible DMing.
Oh yeah, Nonya.
Oh yeah, none of your business.
Nonya. What's your name? Nonya Business. Which has created some laughs. Quite a lot of conversations about that.
Yeah, another quality character.
Yeah, I quite like Nunya as well, to be fair, but I haven't really played him much. I think I've had like 2 sessions. And he's been like in and out of the campaign.
I want to have a talk to who could forget Nunya. Clearly me. Only the DM of your campaign.
Yeah.
Great character. He's just never there, is there? Like, I think we're gonna have a new session 0 for this campaign when we come back. It's been so long since anyone's played, and I want to like sit and decide whether people want to start like afresh or do we want to pick a point in the timeline where we're going to start from, kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. I desperately need the toilet.
Well, thank you very much for being here and being the people and providing the people's questions so that people can, have an idea of what to expect from this stream.
Yeah, man, no, it's been really, really good. I look forward to seeing the future episodes where you're handing out tips and I've obviously seen a lot of your map drawing stuff and it's been really interesting. So it'll be it'll be wicked to see what comes from it in the future. And of course, if you ever want some company, I'll be round. Let me know.
I will take you up an offer because you've been a great help today.
Cool, man. Cool.
And the chat decided you're the most handsome man in the world. So
yeah, well, I guess that happens a lot.
Awkward.
Yeah. Classic MikePals.
Well, yeah. Thanks again. And I guess I'll let you go.
All right.
Toodle pip.
Yeah. See you later, man. Thanks.
There we go. Thank you, MikePals, again for joining us and providing us with those really insightful questions and being the sexiest man on earth, apparently. Mr. Business. GG, guys. Yeah, GG. There will be a rematch next Sunday. So I believe we sort of went for 6 o'clock today because that's what worked for Mike. But I think next week I'm going to stream at 3 p.m. and we're going to start with the first episode of world building, where we're going to take this lovely map and we're going to start to put some societies in it, religions, and we're going to start with a basic overview of what our fantasy world's going to look like so that we can build a campaign from there. So tune in then. Next Sunday, 3 p.m. GMT, for those of you who don't know. GG, please read. There will be a 3 p.m. next week. That's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you everyone who came to the chat and has been hanging out. It's been amazing. Thank you all for your support. And I'll see you all next week.